Today we are going to be talking about the basics of female leadership and how to be successful in your field. And we all have problems that we're dealing with. We all have challenges that come up, and we oftentimes feel like our challenges and our problems are unique. But what we know is that our problems and challenges, as unique as they are in different situations, at the same time, they're all the same. So all of our problems, everything that we face, all the challenges that we face, we can point back to a violation of one or more of the principles that we teach, one or more of the laws of combat, or all of the laws of combat. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. The basics of female leadership is about the principles of extreme ownership. It is about extreme ownership. So the reason that we're going back to this is because this stuff is hard. It's hard to do. And I was on site with a client recently, and one of the things that came up while we were there, we oftentimes do this exercise after lunch. And the exercise that we do with clients is a hands-on activity. It gets people up and moving. They're working together in groups. And the debrief is powerful. I love this exercise because it really helps bring to light how easy it is for us to get back into our everyday routines, our habits, the things, if we don't put these principles at the forefront of our mind. We literally spend 4 hours of the morning with these clients talking about the principles, how to apply them, answering questions, going through another activity. We take a break for lunch, we put them in this other activity, and it's like immediately these things go to the wayside. They totally forget about everything that we just talked about in the morning. So it's just indicative of how hard these principles are to apply. They're simple in concept, but how hard they are to do if we don't do them regularly. If we're not practicing them all the time, we're not thinking about them, especially initially as we're starting to adopt them, they're really hard for us to become better at. And I relate this to sports analogy. Any professional athlete, whether it's basketball, ice hockey, football, baseball, it doesn't matter. Everything that they're doing to warm up for a game and prep for a game or a practice is focused on the fundamentals. They're always focused on the basics. They're focused on the fundamentals so that they know they got those good repetitions in. Now they can execute on those, no problem, and they can next level where they need to next level. So a focus on the basics is always important. We can always be getting better at these things, and we have to continue to rep them regardless of where we are, whether we're just starting as a beginner and we're learning the basics, or whether we've been doing this stuff for years and we want to continue to get better. A focus on the basics is always important. So I'm going to be talking about the laws of combat and extreme ownership today. And I recently was on vacation, and I had an opportunity to catch up with one of my cousins who I hadn't talked to in a while. And so we're just chit-chatting, and she's asking me how my job's going. And I said, oh, everything's going really well. And she says, you work for a company founded by a bunch of military guys, right? And I was like, oh man, here we go. We have some differing opinions on things, and I wasn't really sure where this conversation was going to go, but I knew it was really important to talk about. So I said, yes, I do, but we know that the principles that we teach apply everywhere. And so I asked her, what does good leadership mean to you? And as we started to talk about what good leadership meant to her, we quickly came to the conclusion that everything that we teach, the principles that we teach, cover and move, simple, prioritize and execute, decentralized command, and extreme ownership, they were all the same things that she was talking about when it came to what she thought were meant a good leader and what she thought were important characteristics of a leader. So the first thing that she mentioned when I asked her that question, what does a good leader do? She's like, a good leader has great relationships. And some of the best relationships that she has are the people that she works with and her families. And if we think about that, they impact, we know how important relationships are. We know how they set us up for success. And we know that the good relationships in our life, the most important people in our life, we're willing to do whatever we can to support them. There's a tremendous amount of trust in those relationships. There's a tremendous amount of respect in those relationships. We listen to one another. We influence one another. We care tremendously about one another. So her first comment to me, I was like, this is awesome. We're off to a good start. can clearly see how cover and move applies. She was talking about the good relationships that she has with her colleagues. She was talking about her family and her mom and dad and how they've been leaders and mentors for her in her life and how her relationship with them has evolved over time. But ultimately, what it comes down to is just those good relationships. And when we think about the impact of that, we know the good relationships, those are the people that we can rely on. And if you think about the maybe tension filled or maybe there's some friction relationships in your life, those aren't helping anybody. They're not helping you get better. They're not helping the team get better. They're not helping that other person. So are there some opportunities where you can cover and move in those frictional relationships? Is there an opportunity for you to build on that relationship, to extend that olive branch, to reach out, to start to develop a better rapport with that person, to really build that good solid foundation? Because we know that sets us up for success. Whether it's our families, whether it's at work, whether it's in our communities, we know that relationships are paramount. They're the things that are going to help us accomplish our mission. So the better those are, the more effective we're going to be. But they take time and they take effort. They don't happen overnight. So a good leader invests time. They spend time, they're disciplined about how they spend their time, investing in their people, getting to know about their people, and caring about their people. So the conversation continues. We keep going down the path. We talked a lot about relationships. And I asked her again, okay, so good relationships, that seems important. What else do you think makes a good leader? And then immediately she goes into someone who listens and someone who's able to communicate effectively. And we know that this is the principle of simple. We know that this is really critical for us to be able to do, is to communicate effectively so that people know what to do. Now, my cousin works as a counselor. She works with kids. And one of the most frustrating things for her, she said, is basically two things. When kids don't listen or they don't feel like they're being listened to, and when they don't do what they're supposed to be doing. And we've all been in those situations, whether it's with our kids, a teammate, a colleague, a spouse, a peer, whoever it is. When we don't feel like we're being listened to, we know that that's really hard. But we actually have an opportunity in that moment. If we feel like, hey, this person's not listening to me, we have to turn that mirror around. We got to look at ourselves and think, how am I listening to this person? How have I shown them that I want to hear what they have to say? And I think a really good example of this oftentimes comes with our kids. We have any number of clients who come up to us at sites and they're like, man, my kid just won't listen to me. And our response is, how often are you listening to your kid? How often are you really hearing what they have to say? Because when people don't listen, what's our tendency? Our tendency is to talk louder, or our tendency is to talk more. And that's not helping the situation. So we have to do what seemingly is the opposite of what we think we should do. We got to start to listen. We got to close our mouths and start to listen. If we feel like someone's not listening to us, we got to start to listen to them. And then when people aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, we know this comes down to our ability to be effective as a communicator. When people don't understand what to do, they can't go out and execute it. They can't go and do these things. When kids in the classroom don't understand what to do, they're not going to end up doing the right thing. So how can we be more effective as communicators? How can we utilize this principle of simple to help us be more effective so that our people can be working on the right things, whether that's our kids in the classroom, whether that is our kids at home, whether that's our teammates or people downstream from us, or our peers or our bosses. Our ability to be effective as communicators is a critical skill of any good leader. And we call that simple at Echelon Front. So really our ability to be that effective communicator, to break things down into simple, understandable terms, being simple, clear, and concise, that's going to help everyone move forward on the mission. That's going to help everyone be more effective in what they're trying to do. So we then proceed to talk about, and I'm kind of driving the conversation because I feel like I'm 2 for 2 at this point. So we go down the path, right? And I ask her, I know she's got a lot going on. Everyone's busy. She's got a ton going on. And she had mentioned that she had 2 of her administrative assistants have left over the last 2 years. So she and her teammate have basically been stuck doing some of these administrative tasks that aren't really within their roles and responsibilities, but they need to get done because they're scheduling, they're coordinating classrooms, or all the things that the school needs in order to make the schedule happen and the kids get to where they need to go and are learning what they need to learn. So she said, I have so much to do and I have so little time to do it. So I asked her, okay, so how do you prioritize, or how do you decide what you need to focus on? And it was really cool to hear her response, because she's like, the focus is on the kids. I'm always thinking about how I can help the students get done what they need to get done, how I can put the students in a position to be successful, how I can get them what they need so that they're not stressed out about their schedule, so that they're not worried about what classroom they need to be in, or so that they're not worried about how their, Spanish 2 is going to match up with their algebra class. If they're both happening at the same time, how can we make this work? It was really cool, because I think that is what prioritize and execute is about. What task, what assignment, what thing do we need to prioritize is going to have the biggest impact on the entire mission, on the entire organization, on our entire family? What do we need to focus on? And she was certainly focused on the students and keeping them the center of everything that she was doing, because that's what the school is about. It's about educating those kids, putting them in a position to be successful, making them feel like they have the tools necessary, especially as she's a counselor. She's hearing a lot and kids are dealing with a lot. So she wants to not only be able to do some of that admin stuff, but also be able to accomplish her job and her role. And I said to her, so you have so little time, you're down a person, you got a partner that you can work with who you guys share some duties, but how really do you do this in all that stress? You're hearing stories from kids, there's a lot going on. I imagine there's a moment of that where you're taking some of that on. So how are you able to manage everything that you have during the day? She just said, you know what, I take it one day at a time, and I keep this idea in mind that I can't get caught up in that, because if I get caught up in that, I know I'm going to lose focus on some other things. So I'm present, I'm in the moment with the students, I'm getting done what I need to get done, and I'm not getting too far ahead of myself. I'm not stressing about 3 months from now if we still don't have an admin assistant. I'm literally taking it day by day. And again, you guys know this is prioritize and execute. This is about our ability to detach from the stress, from the chaos, from what can be overwhelming moments, especially if you think about everything that you all have going on, everything that we have going on in our life. We have to be able to detach. We have to be able to see, where am I getting target fixated? Where am I getting so focused that I'm losing sight of the bigger picture? Am I really working on the things that are going to have the biggest impact on the team and on the mission? And we're only going to find those answers if we can really pull ourselves out. If we can take that step back, take a second to relax, take that deep breath, look around and evaluate everything that we have going on, and then make a call. And that call is based in what is going to have the biggest impact on the team and on the mission. So again, we're having this conversation. It was just really cool for me to hear from her about her experience, and naturally prioritize and execute led into decentralized command just because of everything that she had going on. She's like, I rely on my teammate, on my partner that I work with, the other counselor who's in the office with me. We do a ton of stuff supporting one another back and forth. We're always looking for ways to help one another. We're always trying to do what we can to manage everything that we have going on, and doing our best with everything that we have to utilize our resources, to utilize others, but certainly to support one another. And when we think about decentralized command, we're often talking about empowering our people, right? We're talking about pushing decision-making down to the lowest levels and empowering those people to make decisions, providing them with the why, which is critical. We have to know why we're doing what we're doing. We have to be able to express that message to our team. But one thing we also talk about in decentralized commands, the first bullet that we put up when we talk to our clients is that everyone leads. And in order for everyone to lead, they need to understand why they're doing what they're doing and the impact that that has on the mission. And that doesn't always have to be downstream. Decentralized command, and going back to that example that I shared with you guys at the beginning about this game that we do after lunch with our clients, there are no assigned hierarchy in that game. There's no assigned team leaders for the different groups that they're working with. And yet everyone is contributing. Everyone's providing good input. They're listening to one another, generally speaking. They're trying new ideas to solve this problem that they have. And that's what decentralized command is about. It's about creating a culture where everyone understands why they're doing what they're doing, and they are empowered to make decisions at their level, whatever that level is, whether that is the CEO, whether that is, dad in the family situation, whoever that is. If we are really creating this culture of decentralized command, we are empowering everyone to lead. We're empowering everyone with the roles and responsibilities and parameters of their job so that they can make decisions that are in the best interest of the family, that are in the best interest of the organization. So it was cool for me to hear from her say, like, hey, my colleague and I, my teammate and I, we often work collectively together on this a lot, but to think of decentralized command a little bit of a different way. Oftentimes we think about it downstream, but it is something that we want to create that works at every level, at every layer of our organization. And lastly, we got to the point of extreme ownership. She was like, one of the most frustrating things for me as a teacher and what I see and observe, not only from others, but from students, is that people don't like admitting mistakes. If you mess something up, just take responsibility for it and fix it. Take responsibility for it and fix it. And I was like, I get you. I hear you. Again, all the things that we talk about with extreme ownership. She was saying in a different way. She was talking about taking responsibility for what you do, your actions, how you behave, taking responsibility for all of those things and admitting to mistakes. And that stuff is hard. It's hard for us to do as human beings. It is really easy for us to say, hey, Corey just messed up and she's not taking ownership of everything. We can see it in other people, but when we think about the application of these principles to ourselves and being able to detach, to take that step back, to say and evaluate, what was my role in this situation? What was my contribution? Where did I mess up? What could I have done better? And really being able to take that harsh look in the mirror to take ownership. Again, we say these principles are simple, but they're not easy. They're simple in concept. And they're easy to point out when other people aren't doing them. Hey, so-and-so is doing a bad job at cover and move. They're not building good relationships. Or so-and-so's communication is awful. They're so complicated. I never know what's going on. Or so-and-so makes emotional decisions and it drives me crazy because it just makes the situation worse. We can see it in other people, but the best leaders, the good leaders, whether female, male, wherever you are in the organization, wherever you are in your professional life, the best leaders apply these principles to themselves every day. And they take the time to look at how can I utilize these to be more effective for my family, to be more effective for my team, for my community, and ultimately to set the example to be more effective for everybody else, so that I'm showing up to be the best leader that I can be, so that other people see that example, so that other people see the impact of that. We know that these principles work. We know that they each have an impact on everything that we're doing, and our ability to apply them regularly and consistently is what's going to set us apart. But they're basic. They're basic as I started, and they're things that we need to be focused on all the time and getting those repetitions in so we continually get better, so we continually see ways to improve. Corey, I think that's all I got for the opening here. Any thoughts from you?
No, I think this was awesome. I just want to reiterate, and it's actually something someone brought up in the chat. Hopefully it's a question we'll get to, but we actually have a lot of questions, so I want to get over to those. I love that you took this topic and you went back over the basics, because we all need to be reminded of the basics as often as possible. Because I think someone in the chat even said these are simple, not easy to do. And we know that that's true. And we know that if you're really going to learn something, you're going to retain it, you're going to be able to do it effectively. You actually have to practice it and learn about it and think about it a lot. And so that repetition of going over all the basic laws of combat and EO again is so critical, and honestly ties back into everything we ever talk about. You can make a connection to any topic we've ever discussed, and those principles are in there somewhere. So I think it was cool to just hear your example and that story of you explaining it to your cousin and being able to talk through all those different aspects, and to really see that it is universal. Because I think another reason that this particular topic gets asked in this way is that women think that it's different for us. And there are things about it that are different. There are different ways that we're going to apply it. Some things are going to come easier to us than others. Some things are going to be harder for us than others. But the concepts and the things you need to do are the same. And so I love that we're getting to talk about that again and think through that again. And hopefully we can talk through these questions about ways you guys can actually go and put that into practice and do it moving forward from this session.